Good evening and welcome to the City Council meeting of January 20th, 2026. City Clerk, please call the roll.
Thank you, Mayor. Council members present and establishing a quorum are Council members Fulcher, Beaumont, Hanford, Walker, Gamble, Fisher, and Blair.
Thank you. Councilmember Hanford, please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Just looking to see if the timer's on the screen. Okay. First item of business is public comments. This is a limited opportunity for people to speak to the council during this council meeting. Pursuant to council rules of procedure, oral public comment is limited to in-person comment only and must comply with the standards set forth in the council rules. Comments are limited to 3 minutes. Information on where to send written comments is on tonight's agenda and on the screen. Thank you. Okay, we have a few people signed up. The first person signed up is Tamara Karachi. Did I say that right? Krejci? Okay, great. Yep, come on up and state your name, area of residence, or association with the city.
Okay. Good evening. My name is Tamara Krejci, and I'm speaking on behalf of myself and my husband, Brett. We are homeowners adjacent to the proposed Trombley Heights development and have lived in Monroe for 16 years. I want to apologize. I'm going to read this, so it's not going to be very good eye contact. I want to start by grounding my comments in the city's vision for our community. Imagine Monroe, a lively center surrounded by nature, a place of beauty and goodwill. I believe that vision only works if growth in our area is balanced with protection of the natural areas that make Monroe feel like home. I also want to acknowledge that we understand the city has constraints when it comes to growth in zoning. I'm not here to argue that nothing should ever be built. What I'm asking is the city treat existing residents like what we are, neighbors who will live with the impacts long after approvals are granted. In our area, we've watched our hillside, bordered by Chain Lake Road, change dramatically over the last decade. The pace and density of the development have come with real consequences. A massive reduction in green space, worsening traffic, and increasing pressure on already limited infrastructure. Here's what we're specifically asking for tonight. Please deny Phase 2 of the Trombley Heights development as proposed and instead preserve that area as a natural critical area or wildlife corridor and buffer. Why Phase 2? Because it's the most logical place to draw a line. It includes existing constraints like access and utility easements, and it already functions as an important natural wildlife corridor. We see wildlife using that area regularly, far beyond what is represented in the current SEPA documentation. There are deer, hawks, bald eagles, owls, coyotes, and more. Preserving Phase 2 as a protected natural buffer would accomplish 4 critical things. First, it would protect existing easements and access needs without creating conflict with adjacent property owners. Second, it would maintain meaningful habitat and a functioning wildlife corridor as development continues, especially the neighboring proposed Davis annexation. Third, it would provide a respectful, practical separation between current homeowners and the Trombley Heights development, something earlier neighborhoods in this area did much better by keeping open space between established homes and new construction. If you look at the different phases of Eaglemont and the other developments along 134th, you'll see the same respectful approach has been used in the past. Fourth, it would allow access to Trombley Heights from 191st. In the current proposed plans, the developer states that an access point from 191st is not possible, but there is already an existing road in that location, and it sits just outside of Phase 2. We're asking for a solution that matches the city's vision, a community where we can have a lively center and protect the nature around it, a place of beauty and goodwill for both new residents and those who are already here. Please deny Phase 2 as proposed and require it to remain a protected natural buffer. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Andrew Damon.
Good evening. Thank you for letting me speak. My name's Andrew Damon. I live in North Monroe, just off of 130th Place Southeast, just north of the Davis property. We moved here a little over 5 years ago to our current address, mainly trying to get back to where we grew up and embrace wilderness and the area that we truly love. Since moving here, we've seen a ton of wildlife and everything that migrates and travels through our property. We've seen deer, coyotes, rabbits, fishers, possums, owls, hawks, eagles, many other birds. The list goes on. This is probably one of my favorite parts about living where we are. It's just the amount of wildlife that we get to see on a daily basis, which is why I'm coming here to speak today, is because the Davis annexation concerns me that that may impact the wildlife significantly and our quality of life. I like to think that our property is one of the safe havens for these animals to go through. We're right next to the Davis property on the north end. I was also surprised to learn, I guess it was about a week ago, about the proposed development. Even though we've been here for over 5 years, it's the first I've heard of it. So I felt it was my duty to come down here and say something and not just watch and let things happen. So I feel if the Davis property was annexed and developed, I likely wouldn't see any of that wildlife again. And that's probably the last part of the hill before 130th Place that still has large natural areas and old growth forest. The other impact that it has had on us with all the development on the hill there is a lot of the trees as they were taken down were old growth trees. So they had been deeply rooted. They were ready to withstand the windstorms. But now that a lot of those trees have been taken out as Eaglemont has been developed and built, our property, and I know the Davis property as well, is experiencing the brunt of this. We've had a ton of trees falling down, incurred a lot of expenses. Personally had to hire an arborist to come out, limb up the trees, take down a lot of trees that were never a risk when we first moved in. And this continues to be an issue every time we get a new windstorm or snowstorm, whatever it may be. There's always a new project in the yard. We also have 2 young children, aged 4 years and 5 months old, who we always envisioned living out here, being able to get dirty, have some space to roam around. I know they love watching all the wildlife from our windows, whether it's the deer, the bunnies, whatever it may be. It's the highlight of our days. So to hear that that may be impacted and taken away really breaks my heart. So I would hate to see that happen. So I'm asking, please do not annex the Davis property. And thank you for the time.
Thank you. Mr. Gutierrez?
Sorry if I could get my paper out of here. My name is Rogelio Gutierrez. I was here a couple times for a couple of the other public hearings, but I am providing public comment today on this study session related to the pre-annexation process for the Davis property. A lot of you have received some of my emails or phone calls or discussions about some of the concerns that not only I have, but some of the residents have. And so one of the lessons that I want to take today to talk about is about investing. Investing in, when people talk about what to build or what to buy, but people who do the investing well in whatever aspect, whether it's in building, whether it's in buying stuff, whether it's in, is they spend the time to understand what not to buy and what not to build, at least not until all the risks are understood. The cities face the same kind of choices every day, all over the place, whether it's the schools, the roads, the infrastructure, communities, annexations, so on and so forth. The list goes on. Pre-annexation is not just a small technical step. It's been represented as such, but it isn't. Once those assumptions are made, the flexibility narrows and it just quietly disappears. There is other hearings, there is other processes in place, but the way that this is happening now, it's out of the context of the comprehensive plan. I've spoken to people around the neighborhood surrounding the properties, and they all expressed that Some of them even attended the comprehensive plan meetings earlier in 2025 here in Monroe, both unincorporated Snohomish County residents and City of Monroe residents, and this property obviously was not part of the discussion. They are just as surprised as we are. And so you're gonna continue seeing comments, information about how people are feeling about the process and why it's happening in parallel to comprehensive plan amendments, when in reality, comprehensive plans and amendments should feed into capacity decisions. Moving forward, in the spirit of efficiency, is not the same as good planning. The most responsible move is to wait until we understand what this property has, what impacts it has to Snohomish, to the City of Monroe, and all aspects of the items I've discussed over many different forums. I ask that we pause to make sure that those decisions follow the plans that it's supposed to serve, not the other way around. It's worth paying for patience up front to avoid paying for assumptions later. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Ms. Gutierrez? I know. You caught me. You caught me. I saw you smile earlier.
Well, thank you. So I want to introduce myself. My name is Shaida Gutierrez. I live in Egomont with my husband, Rogelio. We have been living in Monroe for 9 years now. We actually have 2 kids. I was really happy to hear about Andrew's family. I'll share a little about mine, eating up my time a little. We've got a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old. Purposely chose to move to Monroe because we like that, mid-rural feel, right? It's really nice to take our kids to the park, and we're not around like the big city. So that was a big choice for us. Actually, we both grew up in New York City, right? So my husband grew up in Manhattan, I grew up in Brooklyn, and we made this choice. I understand this is a study session. Maybe I don't understand the purpose, but I thought I would like to share a little about what I learned of annexation, and I wanted to share that with you, and then I'll end with my ask. So I'm here regarding the pre-annexation decision for the Davis properties. I want to start with the Snohomish Vision 2050. I did some reading. It's a lot of pages, 300 or something. One of the big things that called out to me is it said, we want to put people where transit can move them, near high-capacity transit, near the light rail system, near the rapid bus lines. And so when you read that, it really is saying, like, we want to put people in regional centers like Everett. Then you go to the Snohomish Buildable Lands Report. That one was using 2019 data, and it was published, I think, in 2021, I think it is. So what that was saying is that here we have this deficit in Everett, right, because Snohomish County wants to grow Everett. Yes, there's an expected growth in Monroe, but it's a lower growth. What it also identified is your housing deficit, or however much housing it needed for 2035. I think what it was saying is, looking at the projected growth, there was still this 700 homes needed for the 2035 goals for population. Now, I am no expert, and I'm not here to tell you the data. That's not my job. That's your job to ask planning, and that's what I'm here to ask you, right? Because then what I did by hand is go through the beautiful Monroe's website of where it talks about all the different projects that we've published since 2019, Egomont, Trombley Heights, Montu, Woodside, Woods Creek. I can't name all of them, right? But that came out to something like 975 homes. And your buildable lands report said you needed 700 homes by 2035. So my conclusion was, do we need more homes right now? Do you need more land in the city to build homes? That's my question to you. And it's not my job to give you that, because I'm not independent, right? I'm an affected homeowner. But I'm asking you to get that data before we make decisions. Show us, the residents, why this is needed before we just quickly move forward with things. Because that's kind of where I'm feeling, is that we're putting a lot of things together, and I just feel like I'm being rolled over, right? So thank you again, and I hope that we can ask for these things during maybe this session or a different one. Thanks.
Thank you. I see no one else wishing to speak. Is there anyone in the audience who would like to speak? Okay. The public comments portion of the meeting is now closed. Next item is council member reports. Councilmember Walker?
I think this is week 2, maybe that I'd go first. I want to switch
I
spots.
know you switched spots.
I will just say I appreciate everyone who's coming out and giving comments about this property. I think that's exactly what we hope our city hall is for, is to get citizen feedback when we're going through the policy process. And I think this is what land use decisions are supposed to look like. I know that I take it seriously. I can't speak for the council. I'm sure the rest of them do as well. That we have a greater responsibility to put time and due diligence into these decisions, because at the end of the day, they are going to have effects that last more than a few years. They're going to last 50, 100 years maybe, hopefully. Infrastructure, Joe. But I would like to see if we can slow things down if possible. The traffic infrastructure is one of my bigger concerns. So whatever it might take to get more data on the future of our roads, Chain Lake Road, where it intersects with Brown Road, and what the actual prospect is of improvements happening there. I would like to see more time taken because I appreciate the effort that's been put into it. I think I'll leave it there. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Fisher.
Second week in a row, I've been second. All right, so I talked with a couple of people this week. We had a resident that was concerned about speed bumps, I think in Frylands. Contacted with that person, and it looks like we have an email now where Jake has also reached out to him, so I appreciate that. That is awesome. Thank you very much for doing that. I have talked with a lot of people that are sitting in the audience tonight, which I love. So we got to keep the conversations going, keep the conversations open. I don't think that we have talked yet, but we'll maybe get a chance to do that here in the next few days. And yeah, like Councilman Walker said, there are a lot of things to be concerned about. It's not a simple decision. There's wildlife concerns, there's traffic concerns, there's also property owner concerns. When the impacts of what are we allowed to do with the piece of property that we actually own, which is very important to me, and then also taking into context all of the things that people are concerned about with development. So we will continue down that path. Again, I really enjoy everybody's input on this. I learn a ton. Hopefully you guys learn something, and I love the interaction. So keep it up. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Blair.
Hello. Yes, so thanks for everyone's participation. The reason I'm sitting up here today is because I first started out coming to council meetings because I was concerned about a development. And that's what got me coming here, and that passion. I do care about how any of our growth is going to impact the people who already live here. Sometimes, the Davises lived here longer than anyone in the audience, so they've been impacted by everything that's been going on up there. So that is part of the conversation as well. At this point, they are landowners that could develop in the county. So this isn't about, I keep thinking that there's some misunderstanding, because this isn't about whether or not we're allowing development on this land. They can develop as it is now. They're asking to develop under Monroe codes, city codes, rather than the county codes. And so that they can be a partner, and we can all have some say together in how this looks. And I'm thankful to them for that. So that's one misconception I feel like keeps occurring. You are right where you're looking at all those things, looking up the buildable lands and the projections for population. This stuff's not new to us. We've been talking about this stuff for however long anyone's been up here. They've been talking about this stuff. Even though it might be new to you guys hearing about it, it's not new to us. And so please don't think that we're making a rash decision on any of this. And I also am willing to speak to anybody outside of the meetings as well. That's all I've got on this. Thanks.
Thank you. Councilmember Hanford.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I just concur with everything that's been said. I've said this multiple times, we want to hear from our citizens, and so it's great to hear. We are following the process, so it may appear that all of our minds have been made up about something, but the process is to go to Plan Commission, and then Plan Commission studies it. They do their due diligence, and the process then is for them to bring their recommendation to us, and then we study it, and then we do our due diligence. So I've been up here a long time, and I've been in a lot of situations very similar to this where there's tons of concerns, and there's the idea that everybody up here has already made up their mind, and that's not the case at all. We're all open-minded. We're waiting for the process to follow, and so everybody, we can all just breathe and just wait for the process to follow, and we'll have future discussions. So, thanks.
Thank you, Councilmember Hanford. Councilmember Beaumont.
Thank you, Mayor. I agree. It's wonderful to see so many people engaged. And as Councilmember Hanford was just stating, all of us come up here with our own personal backgrounds. And as Councilmember Blair just spoke of, I also have been very concerned about development in my lifetime in different communities where I have lived. And it's not top down. This whole city and this whole entity is a living, breathing thing, and it includes all of you. It is not us up here making decisions. We have that power, but it's wonderful to see the level of engagement here, and we're listening. We appreciate you coming out on a work school night and sharing your thoughts. Continue to do that. I am really happy to be starting my second term and see this public engagement and feel that people will reach out to me, call me, email me, send the council emails. That makes me really happy. I know it makes all of us happy that we have this reciprocal back and forth going on, and I hope it continues. In other news, our legislators are meeting. Session just opened, and we will be heading down to Olympia, I believe, in early February to do some work on that front to advocate for some really important issues here in Monroe and in our county. But that's something else going on that is very, very important right now. And again, I encourage all of you, if you are following some of these bills, some of them affect us, of course, and please reach out to your, we have a senator and 2 reps, and that's a very, very important part of civic engagement as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Fulcher.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you to my council members as well. I appreciate all you had to say. In the spirit of this is council member report, I'm going to stick to my council member report now. And I do appreciate everyone being here. That's what I love to see. I'd love to see all these chairs filled. So thank you for being here tonight. My council member report will include the fact that we had a community transit board meeting last week where I once again was voted in to serve as the medium cities alternate. So next month when we do our back to normal business community transit board, I will come back with more information then. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh.
Go ahead.
Sorry, I just realized that I was waiting for one of them to say what I'm now going to say, is that we had a really great group of us at the Snohomish County Cities dinner on last Thursday night, including you, Mayor Cuddeback, and it was just great to be part of a city that was so engaged with our local electeds. I think we have good relationships, and that's part of it, is that getting together.
Yeah, great. Well, congratulations getting on community transit as an alternate. Wonderful. Thank you. Councilmember Gamble.
Well, I'm going to take the time to say something since everybody else did, but appreciate the participation. Appreciate the comments by all the council members, and Councilmember Blair, you're spot on. It's hard because I mean, I always try to look at this where our minds are not made up. It tries to be like data has no feelings, because a lot of times I have to vote even some way that I might not agree with, because I live in the farm for for the record. So there's been a lot of development. I've been up here 14 years. So as Councilmember Hanford, ironically, when Eaglemont was going to go in, we were up here and there was a bunch of people, in fact, one of my best friends, saying he didn't want Eaglemont to go in because, you know, that sort of thing. So it's a little bit of a full circle moment, and it is truly trying to, you know, we're growing. We're a growing city, and we have to address that. And so that's one of the other things that I like that Councilmember Blair brought up, is that when you're trying to address that, you like to be under your code, because if they're going to develop anyway, I'd much rather you guys, the taxpayer, that we realize that. So that's one of the other things we're balancing as well in this process. So, and it's a very long process. It's designed that way to take a long time so that everybody can have their input. So I just really appreciate everybody coming out. They're great data points. So with that, I've got a couple other items. So House Bill 2213 for the Legislative Committee, when that does get elected. I was just going to ask if maybe they could look into House Bill 2213. This is a bill that's associated, so there's been a significant rise in copper theft across the board that's hitting state, county, a lot. I don't know if we've been hit yet from a city perspective, but within my place of employment, which is infrastructure, been hit drastically, impacting people's ability to make 911 phone calls, all that. I deal with the state on a regular, basis, and this is an issue that we've been trying to get traction on for a long time, collectively across a task force. And one of the problems that we have is there hasn't been enough teeth that when we do catch the criminal, that we have the ability to prosecute and make it so that the crime matches, the punishment matches the crime, because you're taking down infrastructure across the board. And then also the part that really gets me in, from the standpoint of why we would be so adamant from a safety perspective, is that the state is getting hit on copper facilities, on their locations, which can impact traffic lights, all that type of stuff. So I just asked that the committee maybe look into it. There's a bill that's in process that would really help with also because the only way that this happens is that the recycling centers that take it. And so there's a lot of stuff in that bill that talks about, hey, if you're going to be bringing this stuff in, which you can obviously tell, I mean, it's not like we all have 600 pair of copper cable or, copper from a housing from the city or the county or whatever in our homes, that they have documentation that they have the ability to sell it. There's pictures, all that kind of stuff. So anyway, if you could look into it, I would appreciate it to see if that's something that the committee might look at, that the city might also want to sign on, just at least in support, because I think it is a significant life safety, and health initiative for all cities, counties, and the state to sign on to. This Thursday, 7 p.m. At the Monroe High School is the event of the year, which is the Unified Basketball Home Game. So for those of you that have not participated in this event, this will be the third annual, and Monroe does it right, which it is a league that is created where you're starting 5 on your basketball team. You got two able-bodied, 3 that need assistance, and they play a basketball game. Real rules, and I tell you what, it is pretty dang cool, and Monroe does it right. So if you're not doing anything on Thursday, 7 p.m. at the high school, well worth your while to go check that out. At number 11, I'm a little partial to her, so there you go.
Thank you, Councilmember Gamble. Councilmember Walker?
So sorry to do this, but I just wanted to add one more thing in case people aren't here next week. I just wanted to affirm the fact that the staff are only operating at the directive of the council. So please continue to direct your comments and keep us accountable for some of these things, not the staff, because at the end of the day, your boards and electeds are the ones that give them the policy directives to act on, and they are doing their best to fulfill those wishes. So they're good people, they're working hard, and it's us who you should continue to email. So thank you guys. Thank you, Mayor, for letting me talk.
Thank you. The next item on the agenda is the extended agenda. Ms. Knight?
Thank you very much, Mayor. Council, good evening. Looking forward to our next meeting on January 27th. We will have a P3 committee meeting, that's Transportation, Planning, Parks and Rec, and Public Works. We will be talking with that committee about Oaks Street and Turney Place Phase 3 project. For the regular City Council business meeting at 7 p.m., we will have a public hearing, resolution in support of the School District Proposition 1 and resolution in support of the School District Proposition 2. We will have the consent agenda items for accounts payable, meeting minutes, and payroll. Under unfinished business, we have resolution 2026-001, adopting the council's annual calendar, and then department reports. Then looking forward to February 3rd, we do have a special city council workshop to talk about strategic priorities and the strategic plan. Note the early start time that was discussed by council at the last meeting, that's 5:30 p.m. So I have a 5:30 p.m. start time.
Thank you. Councilmember Gamber, do you have a question?
Yeah, I think for the last time I reflected that I'm going to be out of town, so I won't be, and I think Councilmember Fisher, somebody else was with me, Councilmember. Yeah, so the same meeting, just want to make sure that it reflects.
Thank you. So Gamble and Fisher,
Fisher.
Council members Gamble and Fisher will both be out that evening. Thank you.
The next item is the administrative report. Ms. Knight?
We already talked about the early start time, 5:30 p.m. for the council workshop. And then on the legislative agenda, the session started on Monday, January 12th. And already there are a lot of bills that we are currently monitoring. It is a short session, so a 60-day session ending March 12th. We are weighing in on bills, both pro and con, following the council's adopted legislative priorities, which include housing, transportation, public safety, and legal reform. So, council, we will continue to keep you apprised as we are reviewing the bills each Friday, and then we will have Liam McCorkle, who is monitoring our legislative agenda, come and provide an update to council at our regular business meetings.
Wonderful. Any questions for Ms. Knight? Okay. Thank you. The next item is the mayor's report. So had a busy week last week. I think I was out 5 nights in a row, so it was just awesome. Wednesday, I attended the Monroe Historical Society meeting, talking about America 250. So I'm excited to see where we go looking at America and celebration of 250 years. So more to come on that. I know it'll be coming back to council, and just excited about what the community is going to do around that celebration. And then Thursday, attended the Snohomish County Cities Dinner. And as Councilmember Fulcher mentioned, we had a strong showing, and so I really appreciate that. And just want to commend Councilmember Walker for really putting himself out there, and he was elected as the Puget Sound Regional Council Executive Board, and then also was elected as the Vice President of Snohomish County Cities. So congratulations, and I know you'll do Monroe proud. Yeah, it was great. And then Friday night, I did a ride-along, and just really want to thank the police department. It was amazing. Had conversations with Officer Patton, Sergeant Henderson, and Officer Squires before we went out, and just really appreciated the honest dialogue. They answered all my questions. It was really informative. And then I spent a couple hours out with Officer Squires, and I just commend his professionalism, caring, empathy with every encounter we had with a community member. Just showed just a care for this community. Just was super, super impressed with how different situations were handled, and just really appreciate their professionalism. So I'm committed to going out quarterly, and I'm really going to do that different times, different days, different officers, but it was just really informative, and we've got a great police force. And then Saturday morning attended the VFW's pancake breakfast at the senior center with the chief and the deputy chief. So that was great. I got to see some community members that I haven't seen in a while, and then met some new community members, and just really thank all the people who have served. It's a great honor to have gone to that breakfast and to chat with people. In the next couple weeks, we'll probably be bringing forward some appointments for the Park Board and EDAB for the Economic Development Board. The Left Board is going to be adding another person on. That board has to approve that at-large position. But so spending time looking at applications and asking community members to get involved. So I'm excited in the next couple weeks, hopefully bring some of the candidates back to council for your consideration. And then yesterday attended the MLK Martin Luther King Day of Service at the Monroe Y, where we were putting together bags for seniors at Regency Center. So tons of people showed up. Lots of people out in our community are excited to volunteer, and was just really happy to be there. They had more than they needed. And Deputy Chief was there, and Chief Jolly were there also. So it was a great event. Really appreciate that. So with that, I'm going to read a proclamation. And this is recognizing January 19th. I know it's day after, but you guys forgive me, my first 2 weeks. Recognizing Martin Luther King Jr. Day. Whereas Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. raised his voice to challenge Americans to make freedom a reality for all and to believe each of us is created equally. And whereas on Martin Luther King Jr. Day, we pause to pay tribute to the life and legacy of Dr. King and reflect on the mission he inspired to show empathy to those in poverty, to advocate nonviolence in the face of brutality, to care for children in the community, and to show compassion to everyone regardless of our differences. And whereas remembering the efforts and determination of Dr. King, we must draw strength in the face of adversity, continue to overcome obstacles, and remain vigilant to keep the dream within the reach of every person. And whereas Dr. King transformed the concepts of justice, liberty, and equality and bridged the gap between our founding ideals and the realities of our time, and whereas we must stand together for good jobs, fair wages, safe neighborhoods, great quality education for all, and further, we must ensure the scales of justice work equally for all. Now, therefore, I, Patsy Cuddeback, do hereby recognize January 19th, 2026 as Martin Luther King Jr. Day, and encourage Monroe's residents to remember the profound contributions Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. made, and challenge everyone to strive for peace, justice, and opportunity for all. Thank you. Next is unfinished business. Item 7.1, appointments to legislative and regional committees with Jody Wyckoff.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. Tonight before you are several appointments to regional and legislative committees. At the last meeting and prior to that via email, I asked Council to provide us with their preferences of which committees, if any, that they would like to serve. I did hand out a copy of this so that as we make our way through the various motions in front of you, that you have that matrix to help with the discussion. Sorry, my brain just faded there on me. Just a reminder that we do not need to appoint to the Solid Waste Advisory Committee. That is a 2-year appointment, so that won't need to be filled again until next year. And I think that's about it, unless you have questions.
Are there any questions for Ms. Wyckoff?
I will be available over there to answer questions after this because I
Don't
have
go
to
far.
keep running the slide.
Okay. There are several requested actions for this item. I think the first we need to waive, right? We need a motion to waive our council procedures. Councilmember Hanford.
I move to waive council rules of procedure allowing council to take action at a study session.
Awesome. We have a motion to waive council rules of procedure allowing council to take action at a study session by Councilmember Hanford, seconded by Councilmember Fisher. Are there any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. The ayes have it 7-0. Thank you. The next item is for the first appointments for the French Creek Flood Control District Joint Board. Going to turn to council. Councilmember Walker.
I move to appoint Councilmember Beaumont as the council representative to the French Creek Flood Control District Joint Board.
Okay, there's been a motion made by Councilmember Walker, move to appoint Councilmember Beaumont as the council representative to the French Creek Flood Control District Joint Board, seconded by Councilmember Fulcher. Is there any discussion? Seeing no discussion, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. The motion is approved, 7-0. Congratulations, Councilmember Beaumont. Okay, the next item is the Snohomish County Tomorrow Steering Committee. Councilmember Blair.
I move to appoint Councilmember Walker as the council representative and Councilmember Blair as the alternate representative to the Snohomish County Tomorrow Steering Committee.
Hanford seconds.
Okay, there has been a motion made by Councilmember Blair, move to appoint Councilmember Walker as the council representative and Councilmember Blair as the alternate representative to the Snohomish County Tomorrow Steering Committee, seconded by Councilmember Hanford. Any discussion? Seeing no discussion, all those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say no. Motion passes 7-0. Next is the appointments to the Alliance for Housing Affordability Council. Councilmember Walker.
Move to appoint Councilmember Blair as the council representative and Councilmember Fisher as alternate representative to the Alliance for Housing Affordability.
Second.
Okay. Motion has been made by Councilmember Walker to appoint Councilmember Blair as the council representative and Councilmember Fisher as the alternate representative to the Alliance for Housing Affordability, seconded by Councilmember Gamble. Any discussion? Councilmember Fisher.
Yeah, if there's somebody else who wants to take my spot, I'm okay with it. Otherwise, I'll fill it. But if there's somebody that's dying to be on there.
Okay, Councilmember Blair.
I am really interested in being on it. I don't want to take your spot, though. I don't mind being an alternate. What do you want to do? Okay.
Okay. They're not switching. No, they're staying. No, nope, that's good. Okay. Did we already vote? No. Okay, I'm like. Gamble was the second. Okay, we'll take the vote. So, vote on the motion to appoint Councilmember Blair as the council representative and Councilmember Fisher as the alternate representative for Alliance for Housing Affordability. No more discussion? Ayes?
Aye.
Are there any noes? Motion passes 7-0. Next is the assignment to the Finance Human Resources Committee. Councilmember Gamble.
I make a motion to appoint Gamble, Fisher, and Hanford to the Finance HR Committee.
Second.
I'm sorry, who made that second? Walker? Councilmember Fulcher, you had your flag or light on.
I had a motion that was slightly different, but I'm going with this one.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Hanford.
Thank you. My preference would be to be on the legislative affairs and not finance. I can only do one since I'm also doing LEF 1 and I'm also doing the Snohomish Waste Advisory Committee, so that'd be my preference. But I'm open to doing finance if.
Well, if you can only do one, that's why I can only do one. That's why I only put one.
Yeah. Councilmember Gamble, do you want to amend your motion?
What were you gonna? Okay, yeah, that's where I was gonna go next. Yeah. I was just reading down the row, so if Hanford's out, then Walker. Had it as number 2. So I
Walker,
would
are you
amend,
seconding?
well, we've already got a second.
So Walker,
If,
yeah,
if
second
it's
the amendment.
easier because, you made
You
the
have to
original.
second the amendment.
Okay,
And
second
the
amendment.
motion, yep, you and Hanford's out.
Yes, I move to assign council members Gamble, Fisher, and Walker to the 2026 Finance Human Resources Committee.
We back.
Okay, a motion has been made to assign council members Gamble, Fisher, and Walker to the 2026 Finance Human Resources Committee, seconded by Walker. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. Motion passes 7-0. Thank you, council. Next is assignments to the Legislative Affairs Committee. Councilmember Gamble.
You should be the easiest one. I'll make a motion for legislative affairs for Beaumont, Fulcher, and Hanford.
Hanford second.
Oh, I raised.
Beaumont, Hanford, and Fulcher. Councilmember Gamble.
Yes, all the number ones.
That was seconded by Councilmember Hanford. Okay. Any discussion? So move to assign council members Beaumont, Hanford, and Fulcher to the 2026 Legislative Affairs Committee. Motion was made by Councilmember Gamble, seconded by Councilmember Hanford. Is there any discussion? Seeing no discussion, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. 7-0, the ayes have it. Motion passes. Next is assignment to the Public Safety Committee. Council? Councilmember Beaumont.
Thank you, Mayor. I move to assign council members Blair, Fisher, and Walker to the 2026 Public Safety Committee.
Is there a second?
Hanford second.
Okay. Motion has been made to assign council members Blair, Fisher, Walker to the Legislative Affairs Committee, 2026.
Public safety.
Oh, public safety. Oh, goodness. Move to assign, so motion has been made to assign council members Blair, Fisher, and Walker to the 2026 Public Safety Committee. Motion was made by Beaumont, seconded by Councilmember Hanford. Councilmember Walker?
Is it the proper time to propose a separate motion? Okay.
Yep.
I'd like to move to assign council members Fisher, Blair, and Fulcher to public safety.
Do we have to vote on the original? Okay.
You take it.
Okay, that's what you do. Okay. Fisher, Blair, and Fulcher. Fulcher is the amendment. Okay, is there a second to that amendment? Fisher, okay. So there's amended motion made by Councilmember Walker to assign council members Fisher, Blair, and Fulcher to the 2026 Public Safety Committee, seconded by Fisher. Any more discussion? Seeing no discussion, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. The ayes have it. The motion passes 7-0. Okay, so we have to take a vote on it? Okay. So back to the main motion, which was made by Councilmember Beaumont, seconded by Councilmember Hanford, and it was to assign council members Blair, Fisher, and Walker to the 2026 Public Safety Committee.
So it was the motion as amended. The original motion as amended is what we're asking you to approve.
Okay.
Just Blair,
Didn't I
Fisher,
just do
and
that?
Fulcher.
Okay. So I've done that? Okay, we're done. Okay. Okay, so it's amended. So on that item, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. The ayes have it. Passes 7-0. Yep. Last requested action is assignments to the P3 committee. Council? Councilmember Beaumont.
Thank you. I move to assign council members Beaumont, Blair, and Fisher to the 2026 Public Safety Committee.
No, P3.
Yeah, P3. It's a lot of committees tonight.
Oh, my gosh.
Okay, is there a second?
Hanford seconds.
Hanford second. So a motion has been made by Councilmember Beaumont, seconded by Councilmember Hanford, to assign Councilmembers Beaumont, Blair, and Fisher to the P3 2026 committee. Any other discussion? Councilmember Gamble.
Just because it's the last one, I had to go on the record here. I think it's the first time in 14 years. Kudos, Councilmember Walker, Councilmember Blair, that a name has been on every single one. You should get a pin or something.
Awesome. Thank you.
It doesn't go without notice. Put your name on every one. I was like, wow.
Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. Okay, the motion passes by a vote of 7-0. Thank you, council. Moving on to discussion items. The next item is discussion item 8.1, automated traffic safety cameras with Liam McCorkle.
Thank you, Mayor, and good evening, Council. We have brought back a discussion on automated traffic safety cameras for you all tonight. Next slide, please. So this is a lot of slides, but I'm going to keep it mostly brief. Pretty much the first 15 slides of this PowerPoint are the exact same slide you saw at the December presentation. So I'm just going to very quickly go through them. But really what we were looking for tonight is discussion from council, and some direction on where to proceed with next steps with our automated traffic safety camera program. Next slide, please. So at the January 20th meeting, we presented, at the earlier December meeting, that's wrong up there, we presented the equity analysis that is required to proceed with an automated traffic safety camera program. We wanted to give you time to digest that information before we proceeded with further discussion, and this January 20th meeting, we are presenting potential timelines, also adding in some of that additional fiscal considerations to be had, and then this is where we are seeking the council direction on our next steps. So ultimately, the questions we want to consider are, should the city continue to pursue a speed camera safety program? And if so, what locations should we be looking at? Should it be in school zones? And if so, should cameras be active only during school hours or during 24/7 enforcement? Next slide, please. So background, we had a program from 2007 to 2013. Those included a red light camera at US2 in North Kelsey and school speed cameras at Frylands and Frank Wagner Elementary. Back in 2024, the council decided to add it back into its strategic plan and began conducting a locational analysis to proceed with re-implementing an automated traffic safety camera program. Next slide, please. So authorized locations, according to state law, speed cameras can be placed in school speed zones, school walk zones, public park speed zones, hospital speed zones, roadway work zones, and then other locations, the city is allowed to allocate one additional camera per 10,000 population. Next slide, please. The required analysis, so before the city may install automated traffic safety cameras, state law requires the city to conduct two types of analyses, one of which being a locational analysis and the second of which being an equity analysis. That locational analysis is the proof for why we need those cameras. So we must demonstrate a need for cameras based on evidence of one of the following: travel by vulnerable road users, speeding vehicles, rates of collisions, reports showing near collisions, or an ineffectiveness or infeasibility of other mitigation measures. The other side to that is an equity analysis that's required by the state, and this is considering the camera's impact on livability, accessibility, education, and environmental health. We have to consider all of those factors before we determine to proceed with an automated traffic safety camera program. That equity analysis and locational analysis is contained within your packets, and we also presented it at the December meeting. Next slide, please. The study locations that we chose for the locational and equity analysis were separated out into primary study locations and alternative study locations. The reason we did that was because Vero Mobility, the firm we went to assist us with conducting the locational analysis of the automated traffic safety cameras, would only let us choose up to 4 locations. So we decided to go with the school speed zones and also US2 to gain more information on there. We still looked at the alternative locations as well, which were mentioned by council much earlier in the year of last year. They just didn't have the in-depth analysis that was provided by Vero Mobility. So those primary study locations included US2 near North Kelsey, Frank Wagner Elementary, Park Place Middle School, Frylands Elementary School, and then the alternative locations were 179th Street, Woods Creek Road, and Old Owen Road at Oak Street. Next slide, please. Going to kind of skim through this. This is all contained within your packet. This is the speed analysis results for those primary study locations. As you can see, the results that came back from Vero Mobility, the largest problem areas included Frylands Elementary and also Park Place Middle School, although all the primary locations we studied demonstrated a need based on excessive speeding and potential for violations. The same was found in the alternative locations based on our TomTom data showing upwards of 10 miles per hour, the 85th percentile going more than 10 miles per hour over the speed limit in those zones. Next slide, please. These next 3 are all contained within your packet, but this one shows just kind of a graph of that 85th percentile of where we are seeing really excessive speeding occurring throughout the city. Next slide. This is showing our Comcade cases. So when residents come into our Monroe Listens, we were able to plot out on the graph where we are seeing the most speeding complaints. So this is just a density plot of where we are seeing those resident complaints coming in. Next slide. And this is from our comprehensive plan, the transportation element, looking at a collision summary where we are seeing collisions. So based on all of these factors, we see that all of the study locations have a demonstrated need for cameras as is required by state law. Next slide, please. This is the equity analysis portion. Also not going to focus too much on this slide, but you are free to look it through in your packet. It provides some good demographic data on the areas we were looking at placing cameras. Next slide. Same thing, so this is looking at the commuter demographics. The earlier slide was looking at the residential demographics. Next slide. And this is just a quick summary of the different components we looked at with the equity analysis and the variables to consider. Once again, we have to consider livability, accessibility, economics, education, and environmental health. Not all of the effects are obviously negative and not all of the effects are positive. There are counterbalancing effects that council has to weigh. For example, it could increase livability by improving pedestrian traffic, but at the same time, implementing speed cameras might encourage drivers to redirect their routes, which would redirect traffic and place it on more problem roads. That's just one example. All of these kind of equity variables you have to consider kind of in tandem and in a comprehensive light within one another. And that is kind of the point of the equity analysis, is to have you start thinking through all of the different variables that go into impacting your decision with implementing automated traffic safety cameras. Next slide. So here's where we'll begin to slow down a little bit. Revenue uses, the state law was changed a couple years ago to restrict how the city may use revenues for automated traffic safety camera programs. The use of revenues is restricted to two main things, first of which is being the cost to basically run the program, administer the program, and install the program. And the second, all of the excess revenue that we generate can only be used for certain traffic safety activities. That includes construction, maintenance, and operations. And the city must also demonstrate a use of revenues in census tracts with households in the lowest income quartile of the population. Next slide. So this was also presented at the December council meeting. The kind of summary, I broke this down into low revenue estimates and also high revenue estimates. They take into account some of the court processing costs and also the cost of the cameras, which are estimated at about $5,500 per month per camera. The summary takeaway from here is just looking at these net revenues. Pretty much every camera we are seeing is going to have a net positive revenue generation. Next slide, please. And these are the high estimates showing the same thing. Next slide. So this is new. We added in some other fiscal considerations because just looking at those net revenues, there is a couple of costs for different reasons we can't factor directly into those net revenue estimates. The first of which are some of these one-time costs, the costs that we are going to incur before we even begin to implement the program. That includes signage. So signage is estimated about $400 per camera. State law requires that we notify individuals when they are going into a speed enforcement area. So the city has to pay for the signage that it would take to notify individuals of that area. Another one-time cost will be a warning period. It is common and best practice to issue a warning period, usually between 1 to 2 months, before tickets are actually issued. So in that amount of time, we would be issuing tickets in the form of warnings and saying, hey, you did this, don't do it again. So that is a period of time when the city would be incurring near full expenses, but we would not be generating any revenue from the program during that time. We estimated that at about $7,500 per camera for a warning period of about 1 to 2 months.
Councilmember Gamble.
Just when I was looking at this, because obviously there's lots of other traffic calming things that we can do, but I was trying to remember, what is the cost of, like, if we were to do a speed bump? We had a lot of, do you know that anybody know that off the top of their head? I know it's in a previous packet because we looked at different. I was trying to equate it to a camera, like the startup cost of $7,500 as opposed to the cost of another. It was a lot. I'm pretty sure it was more than $7,500. So just trying to take it in a direct comparison between the two. But I would be interested in that.
Okay,
that
we can find that out for you.
The total financial picture from as we look at, because the data from the standpoint of, I just look at the ones that are over 80 miles an hour coming through town and some of this stuff, I was like, holy crap. Now you have the data. You can't pretend like it's not happening. Plus the feedback that we're getting through our email. Anyway, thanks.
Thank you, Councilmember Gamble.
Great, thank you. There are also some ongoing wage and benefit increases that we have discussed previously, potentially the most notable of which is implementing a program the court has noted would require the hiring of another full-time court clerk. That expense is estimated at $127,000. In terms of judicial compensation, we will also have to do considerations for the amount of new cases that would be coming into our court system that would be caused by these increased infractions that we are seeing. There are additional considerations here that I didn't put on the slide, but I put in your agenda packets. The judicial compensation can either come in the form of revising our judge's contract, or it can be with hiring and contracting with a hearing examiner. The kind of caveats with amending the judge's contract are if we increases the judge's contract and then in 1 or 2 years we decide to do away with the judge's contract, it is going to be much more difficult to lower the amount we increase the judge's contract than if we just never installed the camera in the first place or we went with a hearing examiner. The challenge with hiring a hearing examiner and pushing that off instead of integrating it with our existing court system is, according to the state law, we have to process both parking infractions as well as these speed infractions the same way. So that means any parking infractions we are processing in our municipal court or that we would like to eventually would have to be directed to that hearing examiner if we want to process them through the hearing examiner.
Councilmember Gamble?
One of the other things are why? Why is it so complicated? If we were to increase the judge's contract based off of the additional hours associated with that particular program, if that program went away, and it's a contract that we redo on a regular basis, why is that an issue?
Yeah, well, I think the challenge is once you increase the rate to a certain amount, the city will need to argue the rate, why the rate is going down, which may require the city to go out for an RFP.
Why the rate is going down? I mean, if we are increasing the contract based off of additional hours associated to that particular aspect, I'm struggling with that. Why that would be?
Are we speaking of the judges?
You turned it off.
It was on. Are we speaking of the judges' contract?
Yeah, I just
Is that
didn't
the question?
understand the way it
State
was.
law. So state law doesn't allow the city, once it increases a judge's contract, to decrease that contract. So what you would have to do is you would have to wait until the 4-year term of the contract
Perfect.
came to an
That's-
end. And then you would, as Mr. McCorkle said, you'd have to go back out for a request for proposal to hire in a new judge, which may or may not be at the same
judge.
rate. Exactly
For
right.
the same judge.
Yes.
Yes.
Or a different judge, for that matter. You could.
I totally get
you
it,
could
but I'm just
select
from
another
the
judge.
that's where thank you. That's
You're welcome.
exactly what I was looking for. So it is, if we were, basically, if we were to make that decision, you'd be signing up for the totality of the contract of the
Correct.
existing judge, right?
Yep.
And then if you were going to reduce, you reduce based off of we're not going to have that program anymore. It goes back out. We could hire the same judge, or you could hire somebody else because it's a different contract.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep.
Thanks.
Thank you, Ms. Knight, and thank you, Councilmember Gamble. Other challenges with the hearing examiner. So once again, we would have to issue all of our parking infractions, so that might also increase the cost of hiring a hearing examiner. The city would also essentially be creating a violations bureau, which is secondary to the municipal court. Essentially, we would be increasing the amount of staff time it takes to set up and manage almost an entirely different court just to process infractions. And then also a hearing examiner does not independently have any authority to issue subpoenas or kick people out of their room, which could limit the effectiveness of enforcement of a hearing examiner. That would all be authority that the city council would need to bestow upon a hearing examiner. So these are questions we don't necessarily need to get into now, but there are considerations to be had when you're looking at some of these additional costs, especially with that number right there, that there is some nuance to it. There is some also ongoing staff time, additional fiscal considerations. These are also hard to quantify, but I put it into a monetary amount to help give you an idea. Reviewing and processing violations is estimated at about 1 hour of a police officer or community service officer's time per 100 infractions. So that got us the rate of about $2,500 per camera annually. Additionally, there is annual reporting requirements. We estimated that at about 8 hours of administrative staff time to process and submit our annual reports to the state for our automated traffic safety camera program. Next slide, please. These are not new. I've presented all of these before, but there are some considerations you should be having in your considerations. First of which is the number of cameras outside school walk zones, school zones, park zones, hospital zones. The city is only allowed to install 2 speed cameras according to state law. School walk zones have been noted by various other jurisdictions to be utilized to expand camera programs and authorize use outside of school hours. The way they define school walk zones is anywhere within a 1-mile radius where there is some evidence of youth and children traveling to or from school. And then the other is the point of these programs, of these types of programs, is obviously to achieve and maximize public safety. So that should really be at the forefront of a lot of these conversations. It's not a revenue generating scheme. It is meant to encourage public safety. As I mentioned with the equity analysis, there are different competing variables. Not all locations show an equal need in all measured variables. That includes both the locational analysis and the equity analysis. Went over some of the fiscal impacts. There are some budgetary pressures that we have right now. We obviously did our mid-buy adjustment, and we currently have very limited fiscal flexibility. There are also some of those startup costs that we would have to program, and the staff impact to both the administrative staff, the police department, and also public works staff, who would all need to come together to implement and run this program. Additional work, if we are looking into some of the safety zones for implementing camera, we first have to formally establish some of the school zones. If we do any of the school walk zones, we have to formally establish those school walk zones. If we do highways, we have to do much more coordination with the Washington State Department of Transportation. And then if we do anything outside of school zones specifically or school times, we would need to make changes to our municipal code before we could put those into effect. Next slide, please. So I left you with these recommendations at the end of the December meeting, but I will present them to you again. Staff's recommendations are twofold for our consideration today. The first of which is to delay camera consideration until summer of 2026. The main reasonings are a lot of those fiscal considerations, the low contingency we're seeing after the mid-buy adjustment, our limited fiscal flexibility in 2026, and we also have no dedicated revenue currently programmed for these startup costs for the program. So although I would suggest and see that these cameras would be net revenue positive and will most likely more than pay for themselves, we do have to be careful about it. If any of our estimates are wrong, we want to make sure we are planning carefully and we do not run into any issues with underfunding or overfunding the program. So the recommendation is to delay this into the summer of 2026 when we have more foresight and hindsight into where we currently are in terms of the budget and plan that into our 2027 and 2028 budget. The second recommendation is if council decides to move forward with an automated traffic safety camera program, is to do so in a phased approach. The main reasoning is there's a lot of uncertainty behind all of these estimates that I put within your packet. And the reason for that is because it is very difficult to predict human behavior. It is one thing to look at these camera analyses and see what other cities are doing and try to make a recommendation and analysis of our own. But until we actually put those cameras in there, it is going to be very difficult to predict human behavior and how humans are going to react to these cameras being in place. So all of that is to say is these estimates could be highly overrated and they could be highly underrated, which could risk either underwhelming or overwhelming both the courts and police departments in processing these infractions if our estimates are under what we are currently expecting. So staff are recommending a pilot program of just 2 to 3 school zones active only during school hours. This can be reevaluated after either a year or 2 years to decide if we need to expand it, reduce it, or if we want to keep it to where it is. Next slide, please.
Councilmember Gamble.
Remind me, when we had this before, was this the processing of the tickets, was it done at the district court or had we already created our own by that time?
We had not created our own, so it was done at the district court.
Okay, so because the comment is pretty consistent about a fear of overwhelming our current court. Maybe do we have the volumes of those that we were pushing to the district court?
Yes, I could pull those. I don't have them in front of me.
Okay.
The proposed timeline based on those 2 recommendations, summer or fall of 2026, we would reconsider the camera installation. We would decide where the cameras would be placed, and we would make sure there is room for it in the 2027 and 2028 budget. In winter of 2027, we would issue an RFP for a camera provider. In the spring and summer of 2027, that's when the work would really begin. That would include camera installation, program setup, coordinating with all the different departments to make sure we know our roles in the program. We would also begin the hiring process for a court clerk, revise either the judge or hearing examiner's contract, and then do a public information campaign. We obviously would not want anybody to be surprised that this is something that is going to be implemented. In September of 2027, that is probably the soonest we could implement a warning period during school times. And then October 2027, the speed camera enforcement pilot program would fully begin and go into full force. A year or 2 years later, the city would want to reevaluate the program, look at it, look at the actual amount of infractions we are seeing, and decide where we want to go with the program from there. Next slide, please. So this leaves us with next steps, which is where I am going to leave it. The questions to consider are, should the city continue to pursue a speed camera program, and if so, what locations? I also put the recommendations that I just went up there from staff for further consideration of your discussion today. So that is what we are looking for from council, is just where do we want to go with next steps. So I will hand it back to the mayor.
Thank you. Councilmember Walker.
Liam, you are so gifted, and thank you so much for putting this all together. I think I was one of the first ones to push this idea, and if I hadn't seen the things that you were able to show us, I would have continued to beat that drum. But the numbers kind of terrify me for a city our size, especially the upfront of the capital that we'd be putting forward, hoping that this would be successful. We don't know what kind of legislation could pass all of a sudden that would make those all sunk costs, or a citizen initiative that decided that we don't want them in Monroe. Our police department, if you recall, last year we were asking that potentially there be more traffic enforcement, and I just looked, in our last police report that the council got showed that tickets were up 30%, from 561 for the last 2 years to 722 in 2025. I don't know what it ended up at, but that's pretty incredible, and that was just at the directive of the mayor and some of the feedback from the council. So I don't mind. In my opinion, pushing this out indefinitely wouldn't be a bad idea, especially considering the recent budget constraints that we've ran into. But I would love to hear from the rest of the council. Thank you so much for putting all the work into this, and yeah, I'm very grateful.
Thank you. Councilmember Gamble.
Yeah, I appreciate it too. You know, personally, I hate cameras. I just want to go on the record for that. But I'm trying to look at this through the lens of, we have a problem. We know we got a problem in certain areas, and what's the best way to protect, you know, the community. And so from my standpoint, I'm not ready to say, you know, no, I think we do need to look at this through a financial lens, and then also measured results. I mean, I would want to see at a minimum that we're doing speed studies on these locations, because if we're saying, hey, the action that we're going to take, knowing the data that we know now, is just, hey, we're going to increase patrols and enforcement and that sort of thing, but we're not seeing any measured reduction, we'd have to measure in order to see that, right? We would have to put a regular frequency that we're checking that to making sure that we're making progress. Then I can't sit up here in good conscience and say, hey, we're doing everything that we can to try to, you know, to make a difference from that standpoint. So that would be one. The other would be, okay, well, what are some other traffic calming devices? The thing that jumped at me was like, okay, you built it into your financial thing, which I very much appreciated, by the way, which show that, hey, you can't count on, you know, the revenue to pay for it, because on all these locations, they saw a drastic drop. Well, that tells me that the behavior changed, and so there was a change, and so, I mean, I can't ignore that. I can't not look at that and go, okay, well, there is a correlation there, and, you know, we're having less violations, and I don't like people going 85 in a 35. Did it go to 0? You know, that, so I just want to look at it from a data lens. If there's if we feel like increased enforcement and we're going to get the same, sort of result, I'm all for it, because I'm not a big camera guy myself. But I would want to see, we got to have a strategy. So whether it's traffic calming devices, on Frylands and Park Place Middle, but something that we're seeing measured results. And so that would be my only thought, is that from, whatever road we take, if we decide that it's, hey, we're just going to increase, we're going to count on the police department and we're going to increase enforcement, that's fine, but how do you measure that? Because if we're just saying, well, we've got tickets, or, we've increased the amount of tickets, well, it might be, throwing a starfish in the ocean. You threw more starfish in the ocean, but you really didn't make an impact. We need to be measuring to make sure that behavior is changing in totality, from my perspective. So that's it.
Thank you, Councilmember Gamble. Councilmember Fisher, and then I believe Councilmember Beaumont. Did you just? Okay. Councilmember Fisher.
Yeah, for me, we can't put these things up fast enough. I'm tired of people flying through our town. I'm in town a lot. I live downtown. To put these up and create a safer atmosphere, again, yeah, I would more than happy to keep moving forward with this. Again, I don't think we can put too many of them up, and I don't think we can put them up fast enough. And then maybe people will slow down. I wish people would understand that government would be so much cheaper. Like, our budget would be so much cheaper if we would just abide by the laws that are already there. I don't like the idea of speed bumps, personally. I'd rather do 25 and not get over a speed bump, and then do 25 and just not have my license plate picture taken, personally. There was a couple of things with the cost, the $7,500 for the camera during the trial period or the warning period of everybody. We can just put up signs. So for 30 days per RCW, we can just put up signs, I think, for 30 days. We don't have to have a camera there. So we could, I don't know, essentially save a little bit of cash there per camera. And then I know that ticket thing, which we didn't touch on a whole lot here, it's like $121 per violation, but you can go up to 142. So to stay consistent, I would go to 142. So I don't know why we would go on the old low end of the spectrum there if we can go on a higher spectrum. And saying this is guaranteed I'll probably get one at some point in time. So it's not just because I'm never going to get a ticket. I will probably get one at some point in time, or at least one of my kids. So I'll have to pay the 142 hopefully, and not the 121. And then the Highway 2 thing. What do we need to do? So we have to have the state's blessing to be on Highway 2. Does that count for when our streets go across Highway 2, or is that just east and west? But if we're going north and south, do we have to have their blessing as well? No?
Yeah, it would probably be a no.
Okay, so we could still do going across Highway 2 at our different intersections. And then I would say, since I'm for this, again, I'm not really into cameras. I wish everybody would just drive the speed limit. But maybe start the talks with the state now. So in 2 years, if there is something that can be put out there when we start to hopefully implement these things in the next, I don't know, year or so. So that's my 2 cents. Thanks.
Thank you, Councilmember Fisher. Mr. McCorkle, could you just clarify like how long the cameras are on, like the period of time in the school zone?
Yeah, so they should be active, and I'm trying to remember, I believe it is from 7 to 4 p.m.
Okay, so not 24/7.
Not 24/7, unless we decide to activate them 24/7, which is
Okay.
a separate discussion.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Beaumont.
So I also really appreciate your thorough reports. It really helps. There's so much to look at and study here. I would like to kind of rewind maybe 2 years ago to all of the people that we were hearing from that were concerned about pedestrian safety, concerned about new people moving into Monroe that maybe had different driving habits than others. I think for all of us who get out to Lake Ty and live in the city and walk around and ride bikes and do all the things that we do see a lot of speeding, and it's very concerning, especially on Frylands Boulevard. There's a lot of speeding. So I was looking at the stats for the study that was done for Frylands Elementary, and that's an issue in the school zone and outside the school zone with people speeding along there. I concur with Councilmember Fisher in that I think that we need to do something. I really like the recommendations that you put forth, which is to wait until the summer. We do have budget constraints now that maybe we didn't when we started talking about this, and we need to be mindful of that. However, I think that we do have people concerned about speeding, and I think we need to do something about it if we can, and it's reasonable. So I would support your recommendation to consider delaying further consideration until summer 2026, and I would like to continue to move forward with investigating this program for our city. Thank you.
Thank you. Before I go back to Councilmember Fisher, anyone who hasn't spoken yet? Councilmember Blair?
I have to say, I started off completely hating this idea of the cameras. We have to do something, and the only reason that I would be in support of the cameras is that it would get us focusing on this as a city, because it is kind of if people aren't safe to be walking around, how are they going to walk and to a diner and use money in the economy? How are they going to stay connected to each other by having community events? So safety, the schools especially, I think it would take a lot of detailed planning with this. I would like to see us get some kind of a committee put together for this. For instance, when the cameras were running before on Frylands, even now where the Frylands has the your speed sign, there's something about that it still doesn't feel like we're keeping the kids safe down there. Like the way that, where that thing's positioned, the times of day, people seem to just not pay attention to it. If we're gonna do this, like, I'd like us to use it for the safest purposes around the schools and actually get it right this time. For example, kids sometimes have to be at the bus stop before 7, like 6:55. So, and then when we're doing basically a whole mile of Main Street is a school zone, it sort of seems that it wears off on their perception about their speed. So somehow highlighting these actual hours that kids are walking to and from school, like 6:45 in the morning till 9:30 in the morning, and then again in the afternoon, like 1 o'clock to 5 o'clock, because that's where I see the kids and the Main Street stuff. Highway 2, I mean, yes, north-south, but east to west it's a real problem. And when we're trying to get people to go from downtown to Highway 2, that's been our goal forever, right? We want to bridge those areas. When it's not safe to cross because people go through red lights at 55 miles an hour, we have to work with the Department of Transportation on this. So I guess I'm saying I'd like to see us do some kind of smaller focus groups for all the details on where and the times for these. And the speed, if it's 10 miles an hour or more, that makes sense. If it's just like 4, 5, 6, that's not the people we're going after. We are looking for these people that are being extremely reckless. And I would only support this if it is a full-on like signage everywhere. So when people are driving into Monroe, they are like, wow, they really love their pedestrians here. It's not some kind of a trick like it is in Linwood where you get a ticket all the time and you didn't even know it. It's like, this would be, Monroe is on it with their walkers. So that's what I have for this. I would like to move forward with something like this. I like that the revenue would help pay for itself so we could continue to enhance our walkability for Monroe. That's the only reason I would support if we could get all this through grants, I'd way rather do it that way than with the fines, but.
Thank you, Councilmember Blair. Councilmember Fulcher.
Well, that was so much. All of you, but especially well said, Councilmember Blair. I do understand in our budget crunch time, are we willing to take on the additional expense? This is essentially the cost of safety, and I want us to be a walkable city, so we're gonna have to address that expense. And yes, if it will pay for itself, that's the number one goal here. Well, number two goal. Number one goal is traffic safety, public safety. Number two goals, let's get it to pay for itself. So those who are causing the problem are paying for the solution. That's what I would like to see. Increased enforcement would be great. I laud our police officers for any increased enforcement they are doing. But if we've got 3 or 4 officers out in our, it's a big little city, right? They can only do so much. So these cameras are the support for them in making our quality of life better for people who walk, of which I am one. And if we don't like the expense of the cameras, we could always fully fund the police department to hire their 2 officers they're waiting on. So yeah, I would like to look at this in the summer and look at rolling it out, at least in the school zones. Let's protect our kids.
Thank you. Councilmember Hanford, and then I'll come back to those who already spoke.
Thank you, Mayor. Well said, everyone. I was one of those that when we discussed this 2 years ago now, was not in favor, and yet you all persuaded me to join the dark side. And so I'm trying to say this. I am still in favor of the cameras. So should we consider, continue to pursue the program? Yes. The locations, I like the idea of the school zones. I agree to delay further consideration until summer 2026. However, I feel like between now and then, we should start those conversations so that, because I feel like we're in agreement that we're moving forward with this. It's just a matter of the timing of it and how exactly it's going to look like. So if we start those conversations with WASDOT so that we can address the speeders going on Highway 2 and across Highway 2, that would be ideal. I really like the implemented idea in a phased approach because I feel like we can do this without breaking our budget right off the get-go, and just start with one, maybe two, and that's not going to overwhelm our police department or our courts or our staffing, and that revenue will then help pay for those cameras, and then slowly continue to roll out. And it's very possible that if you look at the graph of the cost, the initial revenue, and then the revenue's dropping because people slow down, and yet we add in more, that will be a pretty consistent level instead of up and down, or a huge peak and then a huge drop. And now we have our judge under a huge contract that we owe a bunch of money, but there's not the need anymore. And so I think if we do it in a phased approach, we may be able to, and when I say phased, I mean over years, not months, we may be able to not have to increase the judge's contract a huge amount because those numbers will even itself out. So just a thought, but definitely in favor of safety. And I mean, we see in our emails this week, right? And I'd already seen that on social media, so. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Councilmember Hanford. Councilmember Fisher.
Hey again. Thank you, Mayor. I always forget to say that. I mean to say it every single time, but I
It's
always
okay.
forget in my
It's
head.
implied.
So it just supports multimodal transportation, which I think you were kind of touching on also. And then the 24/7 in school zones, I'm for. I don't know if they can go from a 20-mile-an-hour to a 25-mile-an-hour at a certain time of the day. And the reason for that is because the school district has opened up their fields to after-school hours open to the public. And so there are a ton of people, not just kids there, but a ton of kids as well with football practice, baseball practice, cheerleading practice. I mean, you name it. Those, if you go by Park Place, 7 o'clock at night, that parking lot is absolutely packed. So I think it's important to probably take that into account. And I love the committee idea. I think it'd be important to make it up with residents also, heavy on the resident side, and business owners, people that live from different parts of the city, kind of put everybody together, get buy-in, get some of their opinions and what they're thinking instead of our echo chamber that we have kind of going on in here. I think it would be great to have a public committee put together to kind of go through that stuff. And I think that's everything. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Walker, did you have another comment?
Got a few questions and comments. What fund would the capital expense of this, would this be general fund, or is this out of like a public works if we were to install cameras?
I would recommend using real estate excise tax for the capital portion, but the judge's contract, the support for the admin staff to process the tickets, that would all have to be general fund.
Gotcha. Thank you. Since it seems like this is at least going to come back in the summer, one of the notes in your, or in the packet was the fact that if we were going to extend the cameras so that they were on 24/7, we would have to change it to a school zone because that may open up the state law to make them a eligible zone. Do you know if we're able to do that now? Are there any advantages to classifying those as school zones now? Does that give us any tools or devices that we might not currently be employing?
Yeah, and I believe you're referencing school walk zones and not school
Yes,
zones.
thank you.
Yeah. It is something we could look into doing now. I don't think there's a reason we have to wait for that. I'm not sure it necessarily gets us anything more than just this specific topic and safety cameras.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you. The other thing is when it comes to the budget conversation that's coming up and maybe, whatever time during the rest of the year, the rapid flashing beacons have just had tremendous feedback and I think success. We get those emails constantly as well. I think we all got one a few weeks ago that I also wanted to give them a shout out for, talking about them at Main Street and Lewis Street. So I think no matter what, that should be a part of our next budget. I think one of the most important things to consider about this is if we were to decide to go forward with it, this is much less of an experiment in that it's just not an experiment that we'll be able to easily walk back, because doing it sounds like it will permanently change the dynamic of our municipal court, and that is huge. I think we've heard about the fact that there is a certain workload that our judges may start to approach that'll change that position into an elected position. I think we've all been incredibly impressed by Judge Ness and the work she's done, and a part of that is a part of our luck, and the advantage of that is that position can be hired in sort of the direction that the city government has at that time. Maybe we want to be harder on minor crimes or something like this. We could talk to a judge or look for a judge who might think similarly. Maybe that's the wrong way to talk about it, but once the position becomes elected, I doubt that there's any way to walk it back unless it's a citizen initiative. And if that's the case, I have another question, if it's known. What fund would the salary for an elected judge come out of in that situation?
Again, that's the general fund.
Okay.
The court is part of the general fund.
So the city would completely lose control or any effect on that position. One of the big things to be wary of is, obviously, once it's elected, you have the risk of it becoming a partisan position. Maybe it's luck, maybe it's the spirit of our community. We have done a really good job maintaining a very neutral, nonpartisan environment here. It's a gift. But maybe in the future, elections obviously have the potential to put forward it could put forward a partisan candidate. And that's another risk, not including expanding the budget and the costs of all of our court system. You're growing staff. And again, like we've encountered with this budget, when money is tight, it's very difficult to start getting rid of staff. So this isn't just an experiment like telling our officers, change your, how often you're giving tickets. This is like, we are changing our court, and our court has been a very successful experiment for the city. So I'll leave it there, but thank you for letting me talk so long.
Thank you. Councilmember Beaumont, did you waive your, okay, and then Councilmember Hanford.
Thank you, Mayor. I was wondering if we might be able to get some data on the speed bumps that were added along 179th between 154th and Main Street. That was in response to some residents that lived there, and there was a lot of speeding going on along that portion of the street. But I think that might be helpful just in response to Councilmember Gamble's comments about traffic calming devices and things like that. I'm just curious about that, and it is germane because of this whole area that we're talking about with the school. I also wanted to speak to Councilmember Blair's suggestion about making this a community committee, some kind of an effort that is citizen involved as well as council and city. We pull everybody together, show that we're listening. We know this has been a problem. We care about safety, we care about our citizens, and I think that idea is really a good one. I think that bringing people together, at least initially, to talk about it is really, would be helpful, and we might get a lot of great ideas, and again, it shows that we're listening and we care, and I think that that's important in this, for this topic. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Hanford.
Thank you, Mayor. A couple things that people mentioned. I'll start with Councilmember Walker. And that's why my hope when we talk about this phased approach is that we don't, instead of going, my hope would be that instead of going from 26 all the way up to possibly the 34 cap or threshold, right? For Judge Ness would be that if we do the phased approach, maybe we can get it to be around the 30 mark on a plateau with the rise and fall. So that's my hope, and which would address your concern, because I have the same concern, for sure. And then Councilmember Fisher brought up a good point. What do you think the reality is that since the schools have opened their parks and their property up to the public to be used, what is the reality of us possibly not being limited to school hours for that? Maybe it's daylight hours, or maybe it's actually, it should be before, because like what you said about the bus stops, I remember my kids walking to the bus stop in the pitch black. So like an hour before dawn to an hour after dawn or something like that, and still not counting as our out of school zone camera.
Yeah, so that goes back to just establishing school walk zones. So we would just want to establish those areas as within that 1 mile radius with evidence that they are being traveled by vulnerable road users, AKA students. And then that gives us a lot more flexibility to do it outside of school hours. So I wouldn't recommend, a dusk to dawn. It would have to be an hourly amount. You would have to say 6 a.m. to, 8 p.m. You would have to put that in order to allow the camera to process those infractions at that time and allow us to advertise the exact hourly time. But it is definitely something that could be done. We just have to make sure we're designating those as school walk zones cameras and not school zone cameras.
Yeah, then I would think it should be like 6 to 10 or something like that, because that covers the kids walking to their bus stops. And then at night, after when they're playing the evening sports and things like that, that would cover their safety. That's all, thanks.
Councilmember Gamble.
But I just wanted to question, because that was the other question I had, is like, who sets the 7 to 4? There's got to be some sort of governing body that's doing that, and then that would only be for when school's in session, correct? It wouldn't account for the summer.
Correct.
So that's the other thing we got to be cognizant of.
Thank you. Jody, could you put the proposed timeline back up, that had the flow chart? And thank you for all your comments, discussion. Really appreciate the discussion. It sounds like consensus is saying bring it back in the summertime, and I wanted to put up the proposed timeline that Mr. McCorkle laid out. So with some of the caveats of looking at, do we start a committee? We'll contact WashDOT and look at safety. So moving forward and taking some steps that we can right now, but looking at this timeline. And that's what I'm hearing from council. So I'm seeing head nods to come it back in summer. Okay, thank you. Thank you for the discussion. Thank you, Mr. McCorkle. Next is the discussion item 8.2, peer support outreach specialists, RFP review with Rachel Adams.
Sorry. The City of Monroe began offering these services in 2023.
as part of our Association of Washington Cities Alternative Response Team grant. And the role of the peer support outreach specialist is to engage individuals in crisis, build rapport through lived experience, and connect them with appropriate supportive resources. This model offers an alternative to traditional law enforcement response by providing individualized, person-centered assistance. So with the draft in front of you tonight, if you have any questions, feedback, or consensus for me, I'm here to take notes. Some of the policy considerations that I think are of interest tonight are if we should issue the RFP to continue to provide these services, and does the scope of work accurately reflect the city's expectations for collaboration with a qualified organization to deliver these professional services.
Thank you. Councilmember Beaumont, I believe you had your flag up first.
Thank you, Mayor. Rachel, thank you so much. I can see that a lot of work was put into this, adding in some things that we asked for and some accountability, and you did a great job with that. Really appreciate that. I did have a couple of questions. Just so I understand the budget, it looks like, if I understand correctly, this is roughly $57,000, and this is funded through an Association of Washington Cities grant?
Correct.
So do we have to use the grant funds for this type of program, or are those grant funds available for any kind of use in terms of human services?
If we want to continue providing peer support outreach services, we don't have another funding source to do that with. We don't have to fund them. Like, there's not specific limitations on this funding. But this is what we have been previously funding those services with, is this funding source.
Okay, and so this was all set up just to continue the program that we have had?
Correct.
But if for some reason we maybe wanted to do something else with that money in terms of human services, we could do that?
That could be an option.
Okay. I also wanted to clarify, it's basically page 6 of the agenda bill, but page 2 of the solicitation for peer support outreach consultation services. There is a paragraph in there, actually it's kind of a bullet item, and it is highlighted in green, that says services may be funded through a combination of City of Monroe general funds and Medicaid or other eligible reimbursement streams. However, the position must remain full-time for the entirety of the contract term. So, City of Monroe general funds, could you explain how our general funds would be used in this program if it is primarily funded by a grant?
Yes, I apologize. That is a carryover from something else and something that should have been omitted. It is grant funding.
Okay.
It is not general funding.
Great. Thank you very much. And, oh, I was wondering if you could let me know how long, in your experience, it might take to hire a qualified organization.
My hope is that we would release an RFP that's authorized, give that about a month to be out for organizations to then submit their proposals. And then we would have a review committee take a look at those proposals. So maybe 2 to 3 weeks, another month, and then start re-implementing that program.
So it might
Maybe
take
2
up to
months.
3 months?
Maybe 2 months.
2 months. And the grant funding is only through the end of this year, correct?
The grant funding is based on revenues that we've already received through salary savings and administrative costs that we've been able to collect. So it's not something that we're currently reimbursing to alternative, the AWC. Like, we're not submitting for reimbursements for specific services. We've already received these grant funds.
I see.
And they're just sitting there in a pool of, we could continue to provide these services, or we could decide to do something else.
Okay. If we do continue with this particular program, is the idea that that money would be used between the time that the new organization is hired?
Yes.
Or would it be a 12-month span starting from when they start?
No, the idea is that it would, the contract would be till December 31st, 2026.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Thank you. Councilmember Blair.
My questions kind of piggyback on what I think that Council Member Beaumont was talking about. Is this maybe a good time to start talking about is changing our priorities or how we're going about this? For instance, it never says in here that this is for homeless outreach, but it says that it is for Monroe's most vulnerable community members. So the main focus, though, of this is homeless outreach, right?
Homelessness, people in poverty, and those in crisis, yes. It could encompass mental health, substance use, people living in their cars, people who are unhoused or are McKinney-Vento families.
So that's maybe if we are going to fund this, make sure that the job duties and that the priorities are in line with what we're looking for. I know a lot of things that we've been talking about, like investing in prevention of homelessness and drug use and domestic violence. And I just want to be sure that this position is being used for all the most vulnerable community members, such as, when a household experiences domestic violence, does this person do they reach out to that family and follow up with them? Same with the, domestic violence of out of control behavior of a child or another family household member. It seems like those type of things help prevent, when you can keep intact people's mental health and their families and teach them more skills. If we're just reacting to homelessness and drug use, we're a little bit past, and maybe finding a way to make sure that this person is doing the most preventative stuff that we can and focusing on that younger youth dynamic.
Yeah, so some of those specific tasks and assignments of follow-up with domestic violence is going to fall into our domestic violence advocate within the police department. So some of that role is going to be more of a collaborative role where that advocate is going to be taking the lead on some of those things. And the peer support outreach specialist might be connecting to other services that can help support in other more holistic ways.
Anything else, Councilmember Blair?
I just would like to see a little more definition, because reading this whole thing, nowhere does it say exactly, it just keeps saying this person's going to offer services, this person has lived experiences, and so I'd like us to define what peer, what we're trying to help, and if it's homelessness or more definition.
Thank you. Councilmember Walker.
Thank you. How long ago was this grant money received from AWC?
The last series of the last fiscal year was fiscal year 24.
Okay, I'm just, and the money is sitting in our general fund?
It is allocated to the human services budget for these types of uses.
Could you say that it was maybe put towards expenses incurred in 2024 or 2025?
I'm sorry, what?
Would it have been on the front end of the funds, the spirit of the funds used towards human resources since it was received?
No.
So it's kind of been in its own pocket waiting to be used in the future?
Yes.
Okay. I don't know, it kind of confuses me why it's listed as sort of the reasoning or the justification for the program if it has been in the general fund since 2024. I don't really understand why we would use just general fund money, even allocated to human resources, if we had grant funding sitting there.
I think, Councilmember Walker, are you asking if we could supplant meaning that there were expenses that were incurred in the Human Services Division that could be identified in the 2025 budget, for example, since we're in a two-year budget, a 25-26 budget, that would be eligible for these grant funds, as opposed to invest in a new, in continuing the existing peer support program. Is that your question?
Let's say I'm Public Works and I get a grant for safe sidewalks or something in 2020, and I satisfy the conditions of that grant. I no longer have to provide evidence for reimbursement for the grant. It's just sitting in my fund. Those are my funds now. Why would I wait for, let's say, 10 years, maybe you try to redeem it in 2025, to attribute it to the grant that was received years ago, when you probably already used the money received from that grant for that exact project another time?
So I think when we put together the 25-26 budget and we were looking at the programs that were going to be offered out of Human Services, this particular program, Peer Support, had a number of funding sources associated with it. This is the funding source that was associated with it. So it may be, in fact, to your point, that we could go back and look in the budget and say, oh, we had these expenses that we could allocate, right, to this grant. But up until this point, when you're looking at the revenue and the expenditures in the Human Services Division, this revenue source was matched with peer support outreach. And so there's $57,000 remaining in that budget that was earmarked for peer support outreach, and that's the program that we're bringing forward this evening for council consideration. If the council's interested in reviewing other options, I think it was raised earlier this evening, it's like, could there be other programs that we could either we're currently providing or that we could provide with this money? We could certainly go back at council's direction and look at those. So if that's the council consensus, that we should come back and say we could take this $57,000 and we could use it either for programs that we've already provided, or we can use it for programs, different programs, we can certainly do that.
I guess my question is just that if we've always kind of thought that the human services aspect of the city is one of the discretionary things, and that's why in a tight budget scenario, the hard decisions to kind of dial that back have had to be made. If this is really just a potential draw from the general fund to advance human services, I don't understand why it was associated with this grant.
Maybe I should clarify, when we applied for the grant, we said it was going to be spent on this type of program. So there's an obligation when we applied for the money that it was going to be spent on this type of activity. Now, there's probably, I haven't looked at the grant, so I'd have to go back before I could answer the question, or Rachel and I together could answer the question, well, what are the parameters of that grant? It's been a while, so we'd have to go back and research that in order to be able to, I think, answer your specific question. But in general, right, in the last several years, we've been able to be very successful in matching up grant revenues with expenditures in human services. Now, going forward, I think that's going to be definitely more difficult, and perhaps one of the conversations that we have to have around your strategic plan and strategic priorities, right? Obviously, we're also going to be talking about the cameras as well. Like, where does that fit, right, in these strategic plan and strategic priorities, because funding is limited.
This will be my final question. It'll be a binary. This role has been very successful. Has it always been grant funded? Have we ever put any general fund dollars toward it?
Always grant funded.
Always grant funded.
Okay, awesome. Thank you.
And I would just add that when you receive a grant, you have a duty to go back and let the grantor know how you use the funds. And so it was designated for this program. So we have a duty to go back, and we haven't spent it yet on this program. Doesn't mean it can just be moved to anything. Now, could it be moved to something else in human services? We will find that out. But it couldn't be moved back to the general funds to help us with traffic cameras or some other program.
Definitely.
Right? Okay, Thank you. We've got a few. Councilmember Fisher, you're next.
Thanks for asking that question. It's fairly clear in my head now, so I So I'm assuming that this RFP would just go out to some of the nonprofits in our area?
Correct.
Because we were with Volunteers of America before with our peer support. Is that where that came from?
We were the former contract holder. It
With
was
St. Vincent de Paul. Okay,
Mhm.
St. Vincent. All right, so it would just go back out to some of the local nonprofits.
It, with the caveat that we're looking for an organization that provides peer support as one of their core services. So that.
And then are they, I'm assuming they would be directly supervised under some city staff of
Yes.
some sort? Okay. And then
But
I
primarily under their organization. Their organization will supervise and support them, and then
Okay.
city staff will work with their organization on contracting.
And I can probably understand why I'm asking those questions.
Mm-hmm.
And then Councilmember Blair, I think, was just talking about other human services. One of the things would just be youth diversion
Mm-hmm.
programs, some kind of youth programs maybe instead of peer support. I think the peer support was successful. I wish it would have been more successful. But I don't think that was up to us. I think it's a good program. But I'm also on board with looking at some proactive things with the youth with this money, if that's something that we can look into. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Hanford.
Thank you, Mayor. So a few things. This program has been I have loved that our city has this wraparound services that we've had in place for years and really been the trailblazers for in Snohomish County, as most of you know. And so I love that about our city. I love that about this program. Having said that, and so I definitely would love to see that continue to have the wraparound services. At the same time, I totally support Councilmember Blair's points of what about the others? And I'm thinking, so practically, for those that are homeless or those that are just completely devastated, they're not probably they may not be the middle class person, but they're going through issues, and this has been a help for them. But what about our middle class people who they're not homeless, but their child just tried to commit suicide or is dealing with lots of issues that we know is going on. And so what about those parents? And so I heard you about the domestic abuse, that there's options for that. But literally, who reaches out to those parents?
Yeah, so in an instance like that, if I were collaborating with my peer support outreach specialist, I would make sure that we had a conversation about the Compassionate Friends organization in town that is able to support bereaved parents, and our chaplains in the local area. And yeah, that is very valid, and I can definitely expand the definition of vulnerable communities to include that.
So that would be for, let's just get real, that'd be for a child that did commit suicide. What about those that were unsuccessful and the parents are dealing with that as well as the child?
I don't think the Compassionate Friends organization would turn that parent away. I think there's still an element of grief there that's gonna need some counseling and support.
Because I can tell you as a parent that hasn't occurred.
Yeah.
So that would be very important to me.
We have a program for you.
That does occur. So I think that's a great point, because just like so many other programs, there's the people that need it. That you can get all sorts of free education and free this and free that. And yet for the person that's trying their best to be a middle-class citizen and participate and be active in their community, they get nothing a lot of times. And so I think that's the very valid point. The last thing that I just wanted to say, going back to Councilmember Walker's point and the discussion that we had there, as we want to make sure that we stay as a city well within the guidelines, because as a previous grantor, the people that you'd given grants to and they did not report back and or they spent the money outside of the zone, those people are automatically X'd off the list and the word spreads. And so we definitely want to stay within the guidelines because we want to be on the good list.
Yes.
Not the naughty list. Thanks.
Yes.
Thank you. Councilmember Gamble.
Can I respond?
No, I'm up.
Councilmember Gamble.
So I just want, I mean, for me, I really, I appreciate this. It just reminds me, it should remind all of us how important it is, the strategic process, and then when we're voting on a budget. I think that's one of the things that we have to remember. What we have in front of us, this peer support outreach specialist, this was lots of time spent. In fact, Kyle, I think you and I met on the homeless advisory, board. We met for 2 years, and with, feedback from the city, from people, all walks of life. We brought in experts from all over and said, hey, how, what is the best way to make an impact? We're looking for recommendations. And we brought in everybody under the sun to come up with a really strategic plan that based off of what we've seen all over, the state, across the country. I think I was on the record saying I didn't want to follow anything in Seattle. That still stays the same for me. But we looked at, what failed, what was working, to come up with a strategic plan. And to your point, Councilmember Walker, we also put in a very fiscally sound, hey, we don't have the money out of the general fund. That's exactly why this is the way it is that we're gonna measure your effectiveness on your ability to go out and get those grants every year, which you've done a fantastic job in conjunction with everybody in the city. So the city staff. So I think one of the things that us as a governing body up here, is we have to remember that, and remember, I voted against biannual budgets, right? I was the only guy. That's one of the reasons why, is what we're talking about right here, is that, remember I said, it takes away your ability as a governing body to nope, we're going to approve the budget every year so I can reprioritize. But when we're committing to a 2-year budget and the cycle is such, staff is counting on this to stick to the strategic plan. Doesn't mean we can't adjust, but I just don't want to give whiplash. This is one of those things that and it can hurt our standing with getting grants and that sort of thing. If we ask for one thing, we have it in our strategic plan, and then we just nah, you know what, we changed our mind, we want to do something different. So that's all I would say, in regards to this, is that we just need to be careful. This is approved in the budget now. We all voted on this already. What she's coming forward before us to say, hey, I need approval of the RFP for what is already approved in the budget. Thanks.
Thank you, Councilmember Gamble. Councilmember Fulcher, you haven't spoken. Did you want to, or just want to give you an opportunity as the one council member we haven't heard from yet?
No, I'm not going to add anything now.
Okay, thank you. Thanks.
Got my phone.
Oops, thanks. I'll get that one day.
Any other discussion or questions? So I think Councilmember Walker.
I wish I would, Councilmember Hanford, to go back to your point, and I guess just to clarify this whole thing, I'm in full support of this program. I talked with St. Vincent and Roger constantly last year, probably on a weekly or daily basis sometimes. I can show texts. I can show the amount of time that I met with him for coffee. I followed this program. I still support it. If the AWC grant wasn't even listed at all, I'd still support it to come directly out of the general fund. So I don't want this to be, I'm sorry if I miscommunicated as though I don't have the appetite for the program at all. That wasn't what I meant to communicate. The only thing that I wanted to ask for or make sure that it was accurate to attribute this, because if a dollar has gone to human services before that is not attributed to a grant that is meant for human services that you said could be applied to other areas, not just peer support, then I don't understand why grants that we get would be on a FIFO or LIFO, I can't remember, microeconomics or accounting, yeah, FIFO, why we would hold a grant that could have been used for any human services dollar till later on. Regardless, I support this. I would authorize city staff to release a request for proposals for a qualified organization to provide peer support outreach services. Just had questions about the way that the AWC grant was attributed in the document.
Thank you. Did you hear a motion? I wasn't really a motion.
There's
Yeah,
no
there's
motion
no
needed.
motion.
No, just a head nods.
Yep, head nod. Okay.
If you'd like.
I
for-
didn't know if you were making a motion. We don't need a motion. Okay. Okay, all right. So there's a request for authorization to release requests for proposals for a qualified organization to provide peer support outreach services. And it appears there's no objections to provide the peer support services. Okay, so I'm seeing head nods, so. So seeing no objections, the staff is hereby so authorized.
All right.
Thank you, Ms. Adams. Thank you, council. Great discussion. Really appreciate it. There is no need for an executive session this evening. So adjournment, there being no further business and no objections, the meeting will be adjourned. Hearing no objections, the meeting is now adjourned. Thank you.